Hi friends, Taylor from Doomed to Fail. Today we are re-releasing episode 14, part 1 on Pazuzu Algarad. I mean, obviously that's not this man's real name. Pazuzu is an ancient demon, and he's actually the one that was in The Exorcist. And this douchebag just, took that as his name because he thought it was cool. But, so, if you're listening to this in real time, it is January 2024, and this thing just happened in the news where after the Kansas City game that was really, really cold the other day, this guy had friends over, and then two of his friends ended up frozen in the backyard, like obviously dead. So this tracks because Pazuzu has friends buried in his backyard. That's why I'm telling you this story. But the question right now, the mystery currently in the news, is like how these guys die, what happened. So I actually have a story. When 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I lived in Queens, New York, and we lived in a little house, and we lived on the first floor in the basement, and the basement had a tiny backyard that was like an 8x8 square of concrete between buildings. And it was New Year's Eve, and we had these huge parties every New Year's Eve. There were like 100 people. Our apartment was wrecked. We had a great time. And the last one we had, I kicked everybody out because someone peed on the floor, and I was like, okay, like that's absolutely enough. And I was just absolutely furious. And I mean, obviously it was in the bathroom, but still. And so we're getting everybody to leave, and we're like, okay, see you later, getting people cabs, all the things, and no one can find one of our friends. And they're like, where is he? Have you seen him? And we're like, he must have just left. So in the middle of cleaning up, I go into the backyard, and the fence is broken. And I was like, these jerks broke my fence, and they're destroying my house. So I put the fence back, went back inside. Everybody was going to bed, and then it got really hot in my room because in New York you have like a radiator, so the radiator was banging, and I opened up my window a little bit, and I heard a cough, and I was like, I know where he is. And I went outside, and I moved the fence back, and he was behind the fence in my neighbor's yard, passed out, because he was like drunk and had gone back there to like, I don't know, throw up or be alone or whatever you do when you're in your 20s and drunk. And we brought him inside. We had a friend who was a nurse happened to be staying over, so she like made sure he was okay, all the things. We put him under a bunch of blankets, and then in the morning he was okay. But like, I can definitely see how he could have stayed out there all night. I don't think he would have died. It wasn't -4 like it was in Kansas City, but if he would have passed out in the neighbor's yard, I was the only person who knew I moved the fence because I did that, and then I had to hear him. No one else would have known. So I think it is possible to freeze outside. I don't know if that really tracks with this story, but it's friends dying in the backyard is the through line here. And as a reminder, we are re-releasing all of our episodes, but if you want to listen to the whole one, you can always go back to the beginning. This is episode 14. Thank you for listening.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I'm like lucky I could talk today because I couldn't talk yesterday. I sounded very gravelly.
Are you sick?
Yes, I've been sick for over a week now.
God. Yeah, you might have had what I had that lasted for like 3 weeks. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll kick things off. Welcome to Doomed to Fail, the podcast where me and Taylor just talk about how tired we are until one of us will eventually die.
Yes.
Not soon.
Not soon, but who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows these days?
Taylor is joining us from Las Vegas. I'm in Austin as usual. I was just in Las Vegas, so we miss each other once again.
We did.
But we're going to see each other in Palm Springs in about 2 weeks, give or take. So,
yeah.
Taylor, how are you doing today?
Good. I just drove here, so it was like a 4-hour drive. The kids did really good in the car. It was just the three of us. And I'm good. They're playing with my mom. They brought all their toys. They've already made a huge mess. I've already eaten a ton of snacks. I don't know if you just like eat constantly at your parents' house, but like my mom's house, I'm like, what can I have for a snack? So I've already eaten a ton of snacks.
It's always carbs with my parents. My mom, since she retired, just bakes cakes and pies all day.
Amazing.
And I'll get there and she's like, well, I just created a pumpkin cheesecake. Do you want to try it? I'm like, well, that sounds unique. Yeah, I'll try that. And it's like, oh, and by the way, here's a chocolate cake as well if you want to try it. It's like thing after thing after thing. You always gain weight when I'm at home, but I think that's supposed to happen.
I think you're supposed to. I just had half a box of Triscuits and some cheese and salami, so I'm ready to go. Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So we have our 2 stories today that are red flaggy relationships, so we're obviously going to be doomed to fail that nobody paid attention to. I'm on the true crime side. Taylor, you're on the historical side. Who goes first this week? I keep forgetting.
I think it's you.
Me, okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us your drink, and then I'll tell my drink, and then we can segue into the true crime.
Cool. So this week well, I have a sore throat, like I told you, so I really should be hydrating. I am hydrating. I'm drinking water in real life, but my drink is like a watery ale from like a time when water was not available, so all you drank was beer.
That
You know,
sounds like my time to be alive.
you know what I mean? When like water was like brown and like had malaria, so you just like drink beer. But it's
No,
not like you were drinking like a IPA constantly.
if we have any pathologists that listen to this show, can you please let us know if you can catch malaria by drinking it?
I think you can. That's how you get malaria. It's like in the water. Or is that cholera? Cholera is in the water. Malaria is in the
Mosquitoes. I think they have to
Cholera.
hypodermically. Yeah, there you go. Cholera. Perfect. So my drink is a little bit unique this week because our person is kind of unique this week. My drink is going to be, it's got to be alcoholic. I'm going to make it a little bit alcoholic just for the hell of it.
Yeah, we
But
have
it's,
to-
but it mostly is comprised of rabbit's blood mixed with
Ew.
vodka. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I don't actually know how well those blend together, but I would imagine that the rabbit blood would
Oh,
neutralize.
you don't? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You don't know how well those go together?
I
What
have
kind of
not.
sommelier are you?
I know, right? It probably would look like wine a little bit,
Oh my God, I want to throw up.
but I would assume that the blood would neutralize the harshness of the vodka, or the vodka might neutralize the harshness of the blood. I don't really know. I bet it would be really salty though.
I'm imagining I don't know anything about blood, but I'm imagining it's like, when you drink an Irish car bomb and you have to drink it really, really fast where it curdles.
Oh yeah, it's kind of one of those.
Okay. Well, great. I'm excited to learn more about this because that's disgusting.
Yeah, listeners, go ahead and pour yourself a nice steaming glass of rabbit's blood and let's get going. So,
Yeah.
the person I'm covering today, his name is John Alexander Lawson. Taylor, do you know who that is?
Does not ring a bell right now.
Okay. You might better know him by the name that he legally changed to in 2002, Pazuzu Algarad.
I don't know who that is.
No way, you don't know Pazuzu?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, this is
I
gonna be a fun
feel
one.
like I would remember that.
This is gonna be a fun one.
Okay, I'm excited.
One thing about this case I found interesting is that the reports about what happened here seemed way, way more focused on Pazuzu as a person than the crimes he actually committed.
Hmm.
He's just like such a freak show, like such an anomaly that people were kind of swept away by him as a person. And because of that, things like dates, motives, details around the crime, even the ages of the victims were kind of hard to come by. So, for example, in some reports that I read, they say that the victims are 31 and 32 years old. Others say that they were 37, 36 years old. Some say he was arrested for accessory to murder in 2012 before he was arrested on first-degree murder charges. Others say that murder happened in 2020. So, like, details were kind of hard to come by. The only thing that's actually 100% for certain is the search warrant that I read, because that was generated by the police, obviously, and so those have hard dates on them. I'm going to get to the search warrant later on in the story, but just highlighting the fact that this guy and his story are kind of hard to nail down exactly what happened and when they happened, but we're going to do our best here.
Okay, cool.
Given what I just said about what a character this guy was, hopefully some of you guys have already heard of him. If you have, you've mostly heard of him because of his appearance being striking in the most nightmarish way possible.
Okay, when should I Google him? Should I Google him now?
Just wait.
Okay,
Yeah.
you tell me when.
I'll tell you when.
Okay.
There's so much to say about this guy, but I'll start by pointing out several red flags. So you're probably not going to like me saying this, Taylor, because you're dramatically more woke than I am. But one of the biggest red flags here I want to call out is stereotyping. So, Taylor, now would be the time I would like you to take a look at Pazuzu's pictures. Pazuzu is spelled Pazuzu. And don't say anything.
When can I say something?
Did you see it?
I did. Well, I see two, and I have several thoughts.
Why don't I ask you some questions, then you can share your thoughts.
Okay.
Let me ask you, when you look at a picture of that guy, you haven't heard his voice, you don't really know what his aura is, being in his presence, or, if you look into his eyes and you think they're a window to the soul, which I know you don't, you have no idea what he's like. But just looking at his pictures, is that a guy you would want to spend any time with?
No, absolutely not.
Would you want to do drugs with him?
No. Oh, if I say no because I fear I would die because he does harder drugs than I do.
So is there any chance if he invited you over to his house, you would go to his house with him one night?
No, absolutely not. It would smell terrible, and there'd be bed bugs.
Okay, describe what your thoughts are now.
So I see in some pictures he has a shaved head. And he has a lot of face tattoos, which is like, I'm actually whatever. Face tattoos are fine. He does have a big tattoo, it looks like, on his arm that just says Satan, which makes me laugh. So that's hilarious. But but then other ones, he has dreadlocks. I don't know if we're stereotyping, but white men should not have dreadlocks. It's gross.
Okay. I'm going to, per usual, we're gonna combat a little bit on a specific topic you just called out, which is face tattoos. But let me get into the stereotyping piece of this.
I'm not like everyone should get face tattoos, but I'm like, it's not the end of the world.
Sure.
Continue.
I'll continue, and we'll decide that. My point around stereotypes. So, in today's climate and culture, it's not really super appropriate to say what I'm about to say, which is that stereotypes and prejudices actually exist for a reason. They do. They're evolutionary. So, as humans evolved into what we are today, the genes that were passed down were the genes of those who could immediately identify danger and had the ability to avoid it. So I read a chapter on this treatise, this like thesis study on psychology. So the book itself is the Cambridge Handbook of the Psychology of Prejudices. The chapter I read on this was chapter 2, titled Evolutionary Approaches to Stereotyping and Prejudices. So if you want to check that out, you can find it. You can go to the Cambridge's website, and they publish all this stuff on their website. So you can actually go read it right there. And it really explains this concept. It has a lot of details in there, and it breaks down prejudice and stereotypes into different categories like race, age, sex, kinship, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But the simplest way I can kind of sum most of it up was this quote that I read there, which is, this is a quote: "By viewing a particular individual as being like typical members of some group, one need not engage in more effort and lengthy attempts to understand him or her as a unique individual."
That's amazing. Well, is that it? Is that that quote?
That's the end of that quote. That's on the end of my rant. Okay,
well, if I may, right now, I feel like fair. If I'm thinking about like January 6th insurrectionists, I don't need to know their life to know the way I feel about them. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense to me. And then also today and next week, I'm going to talk a lot about the American experience and how we got here. And there is some stereotyping involved. So some history of stereotyping involved in a way that I think connects.
Well, we have a through line.
Look at us.
That rarely happens.
It does not. It happens all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
So
all this to say that all this is kind of evolutionary, and we are by nature recoiled or drawn to certain people. And if you don't listen to that part of your brain that tells you to recoil, you're basically going to end up like the people that we were talking about on this story. So, one time, you remember Dan Walmsley, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so did I tell you how me and my ex-wife accidentally went to his house for like a open house?
Yes.
And then we like fell in love with the house. It was like, I forgot where it was. It was like,
I know. Yeah.
Cypress Hill or something. It was a part of LA that was definitely not gentrified, but it was like kind of almost close to being there at that time. It's sort of been like 2016 or 15. And I remember we were like in love with this house, but there's like an apartment complex next to it. And this guy came out of the complex, like directly next to the house, got in his truck that was parked in front of my car. And he was just like covered in face tattoos. And I was just like, I'm not living here. I don't give a shit what the house costs. Like, I'm not living next to this dude. And I don't know, to your point, like maybe this guy had a heart of gold. I don't know, but I don't need to know anything more about you. I don't need to dive into your soul. Like none of that.
Yeah. I mean, if you have face tattoos, you're not making the statement, come talk to me.
Yeah. Like my general theory on it is like you chose to become a social outcast. So like, where's my obligation line trying to understand who you are? So you take a look at this guy Pazuzu, which I'm going to describe, which you just did, covered in this nonsensical like prison tats, like homemade tattoos on his face with dreadlocks as a white guy. And we're going to get to this a little bit later. He also shaved his teeth into points.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like, do you really need to? And he's like, hey, come over to my house. Let's do a bunch of meth. Like, why would you do that? Like, that's such an obvious red flag.
There's, yes, 100%. One thing about face tattoos, I have seen some beautiful, like, women, like the Maori women who have beautiful face tattoos, like indigenous face tattoos are cool.
That's so different. We are not talking about...
I know we're not. I just want to make it clear that's not what we're talking about. And then two, Actually, when you Google this guy, the first image it says Pazuzu Algarad house debris removal. I'm clicking on it, but it's pretty much like shovels of garbage. So yes, I would not go to that house.
Yeah, we're definitely going. We're going into the house. We're not going into the house, but we're
Yeah,
gonna
like I
go
love
into it.
hoarders, but I'm not going to go into a hoarder's house.
Yeah,
Bugs.
yeah. So one thing I wanted to highlight here, again, this is not a love letter to prejudices. The same article that I just quoted, also there's a quote in there saying just because a behavior is an adaptation does not mean it's adaptive, i.e. beneficial to the possessor in modern environments. So I'm not saying it's the best thing in the world, but again, if a guy who drinks rabbit blood and has face tattoos invites you over to his house, just say that as a sign to say no.
So much has happened in the last 10 minutes. I forgot about the rabbit blood.
Yeah, there you go. You gotta refill your steaming warm cup of rabbit
Great.
blood.
I'm glad you brought that back.
So the name itself, Pazuzu, is actually from ancient Babylon. It refers to a spirit, which is oftentimes regarded as a demon, who has the body of a man, the head of a lion or a dog, depending on who you're talking to, is talons for feet, wings, and a scorpion's tail. So Pazuzu was actually the demon that possessed Regan in the Exorcist movies. That was that was like the claim to fame for Pazuzu. There's actually a ton of scholarly articles about Pazuzu's creation, the evolution, varying takes on how powerful of a demon he was, so on and so forth. You go to worldhistory.com, which is where I got a lot of my source information on this demon, fictitious demon that this insane person named himself after. His last name, the last name that he took, Algarad, that's the Arabic word for Lord of the Locusts.
All right.
So that's the headspace.
Individually, those are cool things.
It could have been cooler if he didn't.
I mean, I think maybe like disassociated from this person, they're cool. Ooh, I googled just Pazuzu, and you get that scary exorcist face.
Yeah, it's awesome. Apparently, he was mostly a normal kid growing up. And around age 8 is when his mom put him in some sort of a mental institution because he was acting up and acting out. According to one of their neighbors and an early babysitter of Pazuzu, his mom was kind of a piece of shit who spent most of his childhood leaving him alone to go on dates and was basically constantly drunk.
That sucks.
So yeah, I can basically say she was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
If you look at like how he turned out, if you raise a kid like Pazuzu, who was normal by all accounts until basically the parents' separation and the mom going the route that she went, and instead you spend all your time pursuing male validation rather than providing like enrichment activities for your kids, you're kind of a piece of shit. Like you're not like really doing your responsibilities as an adult.
Yeah, and I mean like you can go on dates, but you shouldn't leave your children alone and like abandon them.
Well, he was acting out because he was being
like
abandoned.
Or just like totally abandon them, which we're all for if you don't want to take care of them.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah. Well, at least you didn't kill him.
Restaurant. Yeah,
at least you didn't kill. Yeah, go to.
I mean, I guess. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
What the right thing was to do here.
Complicated.
It's a little complicated. So I wrote this whole thing about. So you basically touched on everything I'm going to talk about here, but I wrote all about his appearance. Again, white guy with long dreadlocks. I have no clue what the face tattoos are. I looked at them for hours and I can't make any sense out of any of them. And one of them, the bald one that you pointed out, he also shaved his eyebrows, presumably to tattoo the fake eyebrow dots that you see on them.
Ew.
They just look like random symbols. Like they're not tribal. He has nothing to do with indigenous.
Well, no, yeah.
Yeah, and then to your point, he has the word Satan in all caps tattooed on one side along the entire length of his arm. Which, like, I don't know. That one's kind of cool, I think.
That makes me laugh. That's funny.
He actually was high on meth one day whenever he decided to file his teeth into points. So there was that.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Have you ever seen when people get veneers that they have to do that first? Have you ever seen that? If you get like really like rich people, if they get like really, really fancy veneers, first the dentist literally has to file down their real teeth and then pop the veneers in over it. And you're like, you just lost your real teeth.
What is a veneer?
Like a very like a perfect tooth that you like put over your teeth. So like when someone has like a really perfect smile, like it's not real. You know, it's like it's fake. Like
it's when you have jacked up teeth, basically.
Yeah, you get them fixed.
Okay.
But to get them like really expensive veneers, like getting dentures, but you don't need them yet.
Just live with braces for a year.
Yeah, it's gross. Also, I guess this is not a time for me to share this thought, but Invisalign is not invisible. I can see it. Everyone, America. I just want you to know. So right now, if you're like, oh, I have Invisalign, no one can see it. I can see it.
I don't really stare at people's mouths. I wouldn't even know if
It's
someone.
impossible not to see. It like makes your teeth look like they're fused together and it's full of spit and it's gross and I can see it. I mean, I get you redoing, but like just like let's not pretend it's visible. Keep going.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's gonna be a 5 hour long episode. I'm so
I know,
sorry.
I
know.
we're already
I just looked
30
at my
minutes in.
notes. I was writing my notes last night. I have 24 pages of notes and I don't even know if I have a story to tell. So I'm just so excited to get to mine too. So just keep going.
Okay. We're gonna soldier on.
Okay.
So Pazuzu lived in Clemens, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Winston-Salem, and I did hear his voice, and he does sound like a Southern hillbilly.
We are going to right outside. We're going to Winston-Salem.
No, we're not. We are
Isn't that
going.
where Jay is?
That is where Jay is, but their wedding is in Asheville, North Carolina. Yeah.
Whatever. I'm going to North Carolina. Keep going.
I don't have the invite yet. Do you already have the invite?
I have to save the date.
Okay, good. I thought that he deliberately uninvited me. He like told me he's engaged and then just like made a point not to send me the invite. So yeah, going back to Pazuzu, he's one of those guys who kind of like to freak people out. So apparently after 9/11, he would dress as a jihadist, like just one of those guys that wants to scare everybody. I think that's also partially why he went the whole satanic demonic route, because in South Carolina, everybody loves Jesus, and he just walks around like a psychopath. Apparently, despite everything I said about stereotypes, a ton of people ignored the red flags, and his house was apparently chock full of kids who wanted to party and be in his presence. Yeah, I kind of equate him to Rasputin, because he had this like dark vibe, mysterious vibe to him, and it kind of reminded me of Rasputin a little bit.
And if you're in that kind of person that's attractive to a certain point of time in your life, and so like being a kid, being a teenager, wanting drugs.
Yeah.
That guy's cool.
Yeah, he was like an older guy though. Like he was in his like 30s.
Oh yeah, there's always that guy.
And he's living
that guy.
And his mom lived in the house with him, and like she was just like, he was like Cartman from South Park. Like he would just like make his mom make him sandwiches and like go buy him beers. Like at 33 years old, like it was kind of
the meatloaf.
Yeah. I wrote down one of the guys who was interviewed was this guy named Crazy Dave Adams, who was one of his friends who would always go to his house. I'm just painting a picture of like the type of people that are there. This guy's sitting on this like disgusting couch getting interviewed by Vice. He's holding a beer can in one hand while he's smoking a cigarette with his shirt off, and he has all these just like trash tattoos that
Crazy
like
Dave.
Crazy. He was definitely fit the name. He has the word insane in all caps tattooed like under his neck. Like those are the people that we're talking about hanging out at this house.
That's the thing. Yeah.
It's a look.
It's a vibe.
I wrote down the house itself seemed to be its own entity. Anyone who went near the house would unanimously say it smelled awful, and that people there were regularly peeing and taking shits on the floor in the open.
But his mom was there?
She had her own room, and apparently she just did not leave that room.
All right, she's also a bad mother. She has her own shit going on. Yeah.
It's like those moms who are like, my son's my best friend, and it's like you really need to yank the chain every now and then on your kid.
My son's my best friend, but he's 6. So.
Well, yeah, that's slightly different. So there was also obviously like they would all talk about like how he would just constantly slit the throats of rabbits or cats that he would find and pour the blood all over him, or he would just like noose a cat and just hang it on a tree outside. Like he was invested in this lifestyle.
Yikes.
Okay, this is probably not going to be a surprise to any of you who've looked up this guy's pictures. He had a serious problem with drugs and alcohol, and he also was reported to have schizophrenia.
No.
And he was supposed to be on medication.
It's a smidge. He didn't have a chance, really.
Yeah, he was fucked. Like, he had no chance. I mean, he had schizophrenia that was mostly untreated, and he was self-medicating by taking meth, acid, and alcohol, basically.
Yeah, there's no chance. Like he needs like professional help, and that does not sound like something that would ever have been like offered to him.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, like I said, the mom was in the house, and I watched an interview with her, and like now, way after the fact. So Pazuzu's dead. Spoiler alert.
Oh.
And now the mom, when you hear her talking, she's just so nonchalant about it. It's like, oh, he was just a crazy kid, and it's like just this dissonance. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like laughed about how he like was kicked out of the second grade because he just stopped attending class. Like it was funny. Like not.
Second graders don't do that. You do that. Not like he's driving himself to school and not going.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that.
You know, like I mean, like I get like a high schooler not going to school. That's like on their own volition, but a second grader can only go to school if you bring them to school.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. The house again, all of it except the mother's room was just wrecked.
Ugh.
There's actually a ton of footage of police body cams going inside the house. I love this. One of the officers on the body cam says, quote, "This guy's got a bad case of whatever he's got," which is like the most southern way of saying this guy's fucked up. Like he was just so nice about it.
You know what I watched this week that reminded me of that? Do you know the rapper Afro Man?
Yeah. Yeah. I heard about this.
Did you watch the video of the cops in his house?
No, I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
It's pretty amazing. It's like he has his own security cameras. The cops went into his house to like find drugs and kidnapping victims, which makes no sense. And he was like, you know, and it's like, are you the song is like, are you gonna help me fix my door? Because they like broke down his door. And then there's like one cop who's like looking at a cake and he like stops and looks at the cake again. And like you wouldn't know who they were, except the cops sued him because they're embarrassed.
Because he used it in the video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like you broke into his house for no reason and then just like looked through all of his stuff and he's like, "Did you find any children in my CDs?" Because they're going through all his CDs. It's really funny.
What a ludicrous. I bet his house was nice too.
It was so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Opposite of this.
Yeah, opposite of this. So gross.
Yeah. So the house, obviously, there was shit everywhere. It kind of looked like an abandoned house with squatters that would be living there. He had like a giant swastika painted on the living room ceiling. Like
gross.
Everything was just spray painted. Apparently, he had a swastika tattoo also on his leg. But again, I don't even think he had any beliefs because I think he just did anything to shock people.
Right. It just wanted like people to have a reaction.
Rampant, untreated schizophrenia mixed with alcohol and drugs is what it was.
Yeah. No.
It's worth noting that when the crimes that we're going to discuss here in a moment came to light, the city just leveled the house because it would have cost them a fortune to make it up to code and livable. Yeah. So
that sounds good.
So we're going to get into our second antagonist here, which was Pazuzu's girlfriend. Her name is Amber Birch, and she was present for at least one of the murders and helped hide the body of the first victim, which we're about to get into. She kind of reminds me of like a lost kid, although I'm using the word kid sparingly here because she was 24 years old, but when she met Pazuzu, he was 35. So the age disparity was kind of a thing, I think.
Yeah.
Amber would eventually plead guilty to second-degree murder, accessory after the fact to first-degree murder, and robbery with a dangerous weapon, and was sentenced to 39 years.
Wow.
Look, I don't think that she's innocent because I'm going to get into what they did together, but just choose your with wisely, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a slippery slope. Like, so my weird edgelord boyfriend beheads a rabbit in front of me. Whatever, we're just gonna bury a body next. Like it just feels like it turned into a very, very slippery slope.
Oh, I mean, then how do you? Yeah, that's scary. How do you think it? And then, or is it like, are you like in a thing, like in like a spiral? Then what happens?
I mean, yeah. Well, they were together for a long time because we're gonna get into this. But the crimes originated in 2009, and these people weren't arrested until 2014. So like they were in deep. Yeah.
Wow.
So getting into the crimes, again, details are a little hard to come by. We don't know a ton about the motivations for these crimes, although the search warrant, once it was unsealed, did state something in there. I'll get into that. But mostly it's just random. It seems like it's kind of random. There could have just really not been a motive in this. We tend to look at this as a satanic and demonically possessed crime and just forget the fact that this guy was a drug addict and a schizophrenic. He could have made something up in his mind, like anything. Like he could have seen the guy on the couch and been like, that's Jesus, I gotta shoot him, you know?
Yeah, Satan isn't real. So I think that's also part of the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's making it up in whatever way that means, you know? There's making it up like intentionally to like scare people, or he's making it up because he's having like a schizophrenic episode.
I think he's just doing it because he's antisocial.
Yeah.
So in October of 2014, the remains of two individuals were discovered in Pazuzu's backyard. The two were the bodies of Joshua Welzer and Tommy Walsh, who had both gone missing in 2009. So Joshua Again, the reports are different here. One of the reports said that he's 32 when he went missing. He went missing in July of 2009. Tommy was 31, and he went missing a few months later in October of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Joshua was shot in the living room and dragged to the basement, and Tommy was in the basement where he was shot and killed. So they were seemingly buried at the same time because their body was found in the same grave. So it's theorized that he took Tommy down to show him Joshua's body and then shot him once he showed him the body.
Was Joshua dead for months?
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah. The search warrant is going to go into a lot of detail about what he did. But when the house smells like it does, do you really notice a dead body rotting there for months?
Yeah.
Some random dude took a dump at the living room, and yeah, you're probably going to pay attention to that first. Joshua's former fiance reported him missing in 2009 and specifically named Pazuzu as who she thinks killed him. Apparently, this is the part that's a real curiosity with this case. Apparently, as early as 2010, the police had enough for a valid search warrant of the property, and they kind of almost sort of executed on it, but not really. It took another 5 years after this report was first brought to light and the evidence needed to search the house was realized that police actually went and did a full in-depth search of the house. It's worth noting that the search warrant itself was sealed, meaning it would not be made public, which is rare in and of itself, but triply rare when the investigation and the sentencing is complete. So in 2017 is when the first time the judge unsealed the original search warrant, which was from like 2010. So it's been like 7 years that it finally got unsealed, and that's where I went through and I read. And really what it talks about, what it shows is that they could have solved these crimes in months. Like, obviously this guy's not a master criminal. He's clearly deranged and insane. Like, he's not, like, he wasn't going to get away with this. And police just didn't do their due diligence. In August of 2009, less than 1 month after Joshua's murder, a woman named Tarina Billings visited with the police and said that her father had visited Pazuzu's house and observed a dead body in the basement.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the father, this is the part that, how he tried to cover this up. The father told his daughter that the body was covered in a plastic tarp and had cat litter and chlorine around it to help with the odor.
Both those things smell terrible. Ugh.
Yeah. He also was told by Pazuzu that he had shot the person 10 times, quote, because he was a snitch. It just seems like what you would say, right? Like, it's like almost cliche. He even knew that the body was buried in the backyard. Like, he told him everything. He told him every detail he needed to get arrested. And this woman relayed all of that to the police. It's all in the warrant. Well, it gets deeper. It goes even worse. It gets worse than that. So a month later, they also got an anonymous Crime Stopper tip saying the exact same thing from like another source. They don't know who it is, but it wasn't the woman who initially told them. So police go to the house and they do like a basic search and find nothing. They talk to Pazuzu with not in custody, and he says, "I didn't do anything. I don't know anything about this. You know, whatever." Apparently, what happened was the police wanted to go get some like device that can identify objects underneath soil so they could see if there's a body there. The university was using it, and they decided they're just going to execute the warrant without it, but they just like walked around the property, so they didn't actually notice anything because the house was dirty, whatever, but there was no body to be found because they're all in the backyard underground.
And they'd buried them like years before.
And years before. So like the grass already grown over and so on. So in 2011, Pazuzu's mom finally goes to the sheriff's office and tells her that she heard a gunshot at her house and came down and saw Amber holding a rifle and Tommy on the ground, presumably dead. There's so much evidence that came to light around this. Like, all these people are just going to the police like, please arrest this guy. Like, do anything.
Oh my God.
And they didn't do anything. So in 2014, that's when they finally came back to that original search warrant from 2010, when a woman named Dixie went to the police and provided a written statement. It was like 13 pages, all details of how she basically helped Amber, the girlfriend, dig a grave and dump 2 bodies in the backyard. She even specified exactly where in the backyard the graves were dug. So it was at this point they finally executed the warrant. They showed up and they found Joshua and Tommy's obviously completely decayed bodies.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So obviously Pazuzu gets arrested, and that's kind of where the story ends. What ended up happening was he ended up dying, presumably by suicide, while awaiting trial. Apparently, while he was at the first jail, which was in Forsyth County, it was reported by guards and inmates that he would keep biting himself with the sharpened teeth, try and kill himself.
Oh
And
my God.
because this jail didn't have the facility to deal with someone with like obvious extreme mental illness issues, they transferred him to another jail, and it was there that he was found unresponsive, completely bled out from self-inflicted wounds. But what's weird is they never found anything that would have cut him. He had nothing on him. There was nothing that he could, like, there was no glass, there was no steel, like he just bled out, and they presume he just bit himself hard enough to rip. It sounds shady. His death sounds really shady.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm reading. Yeah, I'm reading this this Daily Mail article, and it has like it interviewed one of his friends, and the quotes that it highlights are really funny. Like the friend says, "It seems obvious now that he had mental health issues." Yep.
Yeah, you think.
Good job. It seems obvious now.
If you just look at the house, you could tell that that person has. You don't even have to meet the guy. Just look at his house.
It's so funny that like you're not even mentioning the Satanist stuff, but like because that's like he's just doing it to be like
edgy.
But yeah, like the article is like disturbing video of a Satanist home, and you're like, well, whatever. It's just like a dirty house with like I do see the swastika on the ceiling. That is definitely bad.
But like I think that the Satan stuff is just like what I mean. Look, like we've all met these people where they're such the devil's real, and it's this, and like they look at this guy and they just, who gives a shit? People can believe whatever they want to believe, and it's just like this guy acted on things that were derivative of schizophrenia and acid and meth consumption. Like he probably would have done this if he didn't believe in Satan, didn't have a Satan tattoo, and like didn't have his face
that's
tattoos.
something to do
like,
with it. He's not doing great.
But that's why so much of the story was like obfuscated. It was hard to actually fully understand what really happened and what the motivations were. Like I dug so deep to try and figure out what the motivations were. There's three details that should be obvious that are not obvious. One, why did he do it in the first place? If we could ever find that out. Why did the police finally decide to execute on that search warrant when Dixie came forward instead of the previous three confessions of people that came forward and gave details of what happened to these people? And then, oh man, I forgot what the third one was. Okay, I forgot what the third thing was. Oh, his death. Like, why?
Right.
Like, how do we not have more details about what happened to his death? But it all gets obfuscated. It's like crazy Satanist did this thing. It's like, guys, like,
no, it's just
get
like
a grip.
Mentally, yeah, that's crazy. That I mean, it sounds like what a place to like be when like there's tons of drugs and people just like I don't know, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And why? I don't even think about that. Like why are those two guys dead? It sounds like there's no good reason. Not that there's ever a good reason to kill someone, but like why did he kill them? It doesn't really say anything. Or why did she, or if she did it.
It kind of seems like that Joshua guy was like kind of like a homeless moocher, but like you look at Crazy Dave and he looks like a homeless moocher too. They all look like homeless moochers. They all look like garbage fucking trash people. Like, so but, I mean that could be Crazy Dave, this guy. But there's Vice did a great piece on this story that's worth looking at because they interview a lot more people involved in the case, and you get a sense of who was drawn to him. So that's it.
Wow.
That's it. That's my story. Don't follow a white guy with dreadlocks and face tattoos with sharpened teeth to his house. Don't hang out with him. Unfriend him on Facebook.
Yeah. Or like be like, hey man, get your shit together and then give me a call.
Yeah, no, don't listen to Taylor. There's no help for these people.
You can figure something out. Cool. Well, thank you. I had not heard of that. I can't believe I haven't heard of that. That's quite a thing.
Yeah.
What's his name before again?
John Alexander Lawson.
That's a nice name.
Yeah. He looked like a normal kid. You look at his childhood pictures, like it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever is what it is. He's dead now.
Yeah, he chewed himself to death. Maybe.
We don't know.
Was his mouth full of blood? I have more questions. That's gross.
Well, I looked at the autopsy report too. The autopsy report, I don't know why they would do this, but they actually like drew his tattoos.
I did see that. I did. So
Report.
he'd have the swastika on his leg. I saw that.
And it's not like he had more
think you have
wounds
to do
than just
that.
like one. Maybe you have
So
to do
weird.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
don't know. And I think it also sounds like, I guess to your second question, like it sounds like finally when Dixie went and was like, they're literally right here pointing to the spot, they were like, fine,
we'll go
like,
look.
can we do the least amount of work humanly possible? Fine, I guess we have to now. You know,
Which like further shows the corruption of like
Yeah.
the prosecution, the state.
they probably were
along
just
with-
like, we don't care for like some of the same things that like you're saying, like these people are garbage people, who cares? Maybe,
So you're saying I'm more like the prosecution in this case?
I don't know. I'm just saying it sounds a little bit like that.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean,
It's a stereotype. We're talking stereotypes.
That's true.
Nothing could possibly go wrong.
God, what's happened to me?
All right, I'm gonna go to mine.
Let's hear it.
All right.